Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for attending and supporting this afternoon's talk, and hopefully you'll attend the workshop later on and in the library, and etc, etc. So in a few minutes time we will welcome an official welcome to this afternoon's speaker, who will speak for about an hour and he'll take some questions and answers as we go. But first of all, a couple of minutes of your time please. I have some announcements to make about some future events till the end of the year, not too many. Date order, Sunday the 22nd, next week. Here we have a brick walls and a brush up workshop session. That means if you're having a bit of trouble, you come up against literally a brick wall, you can't go any further, please come along. If you've just been away from genealogy for a few months, years or whatever, please come along there again. And we have this workshop in this wonderful room. Oh, Simon. Hello. No, another gym. Can you find a chair? You sure? So that will be next week, 2 till 5, and the usual library will be open for you to use that as well. Okay. Following on, we go to the 20th of. Oh, I've got 2 dates here. When's the conference? 20th or 26th? 20th it is. Okay, I must announce our annual conference at the Jewish Museum in Camden on the 20th. It's an all-dayer from 10 o'clock in the morning till sorry, that's October. From 10 till 4:30 we'll have 5 speakers and a sumptuous lunch in between. We're going to hear about a talk on DNA, the Jewish community in South Wales, or as it was. Sotheby's Restitution Department will have a speaker from there. And then somebody else was talking about his relative went from Poland to Savannah via Brighton. That's interesting. Anyway, the thing is, where's Martin Hill? Martin, our secretary. Okay, he asked me to announce this conference, and there is a special offer on. If you are interested and would like to attend, there's a special price, reduced price of £36 a head, which isn't bad, up until the 21st of September. After that, it's £40. So you make a little saving if you book your ticket now. That's what he's asking for. Then I'm going on to just the special interest group meetings we have. We have the 3rd of November. Should anybody be down at Westcliff, which is Southend on the Sea, for the day, there's a regional meeting down there. And it happens, we've had people go down there for a day and they've popped in a couple of hours knowing that there's something going on in our regional South East Essex group. That's the 3rd of November. The 24th of November, we have the Anglo Special Interest Group here with a speaker. I think it's Michael. Aren't you doing it, Michael?
It is, yes.
Jews of Hastings. There's the man. He will be here on the 24th of November. Sunday the 1st, there will be a German. Anybody having a German interest? If you do, it's not going to be here. It's going to be up at Edgware. Jeanette Rosenberg runs that, but at her house. And the last one of the year, 15th of December, an Eastern European Special Interest Group meeting with a speaker, plus our workshop and the use of library. What have we got for that, Lee?
Jill Anderson.
Jill Anderson.
From Litvaxing.
Right, that's good. So we have a speaker. So we've got some good stuff coming up. And just the last thing before I get on to introduce our speaker officially. Friday, we're here for Fridays for library sessions. Anybody want to come along? 10:30 till 3 in the afternoon. The 4th of October, 1st of November and the 6th of December. So there you are. Full agenda then. Now I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do, is introduce our speaker. This afternoon we will welcome Luca Ascoli. Luca, I'll just read a few words that Gina passed on to me. Luca is a descendant of a family whose members belonged for centuries to the Jewish community of Ancona. Luca has a degree from the University of London in Jewish history and one in demography from the University of Rome. You recently received Spanish citizenship due to the fact that your ancestors were expelled in 1492. That's what the
As everyone knows.
from the town of, now how do you say it?
Calatayud. Calatayud.
Anybody heard of it? Everybody?
Yes.
You have. You're arrogant.
Wonderful.
He's presently director of Eurostat, the statistical office of the European Commission in Luxembourg. And Luca's talk has been titled The Development of the Jewish Communities and the Origin of Jewish Surnames in Italy. Please welcome Luca.
So, thank you very much for your introduction. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I had a professional event tomorrow also in London, so I thought that the two things could go together. And I've been corresponding for a very, very long time with Gina, so it was a good occasion to meet each other. And again, it's a pleasure for me to be here today. So, as you say, I descend from a Jewish family in Italy, from the town of Ancona, as far as I know. The first Ascoli family, which I could find, were from the year 1700, already in Ancona. So it's a family which stayed in Ancona was a member of the Jewish community of Ancona for a long time. I've been searching my family, other families, the history.
Could you either speak up a bit or have you got a microphone?
I'm going to set it all up.
There's the windows.
I did ask you.
Yeah.
Is it the windows? Can you just please solve the fan? There's the air conditioning unit out. Any better?
Okay.
The top ones.
I can't reach that.
I'll stand on my wallet, I will.
You're on video. All right.
There's a fan in here. Is it the projector? Yes. Probably the projector.
Wanna pass me that?
This one?
Okay.
Sounds better.
Start again. Yeah.
Take two.
So, okay.
Yeah.
So yes, from the year 1700 in Ancona, they stayed there, and I've been researching my family, other families. It's also a hobby for me, and in general, the history of Jews in Italy. I've been studying Jewish history also at the University of London, and for me it's a great source of interest and pleasure to study Italian Jewish history, Sephardi Jewish history, and genealogical matters. So where do we start about the history of the Jews in Italy? Italy today is a country and has been a country for more than 150 years, but this used not to be the case in the past, and certainly not during the Middle Age and until 1861, the year of Italian unification. So the country was divided in many different kingdoms and grand duchies, republics, each with its own law and with a different attitude towards the Jews, which is of course a situation which was up to a certain extent beneficial for the Jews, because when they became subject to severe legal or economic pressure in one part of a country, then they could move to another part, and the different states could also compete in different ways in order to attract the Jews in those circumstances, of course, where they thought that the economic benefit deriving from the Jews was more important for the local ruler than religious consideration or the pressure of the Catholic Church. So the sentence, the history of the Jews of Italy, would therefore be incorrect, because it could apply only from 1861 onwards, while it would be correct to say the history of the Jews in Italy, bearing into mind that circumstances and law and laws affecting them could be dramatically different from one territory to the other, even in the same historical period. Expulsions of Jews in Italy took place, as it was the case previously for England, for France, for Spain. But the advantages that the Jews of Italy had was that although they were expelled from some parts of the country, they could move to another part of the country instead of going abroad, and so they could also continue to live, not in the same place, but let's say in a way, in the same country, in a way in which was not so different for them in terms of culture, in terms of language, in terms of climate, from the way in which they were accustomed to in their previous life. The story of the history of the story of the Jews in Italy is a long, very long. It's in fact one of the maybe the longest in Europe, and it's a fascinating one because while they were always rather few in numbers, always between 20 and 60,000, the Jews lived in Italy for an uninterrupted period of 21 centuries, which is longer than any European country, with the possible exception of Greece. And moreover, they have participated in a proportion which is much beyond their sheer number, to the cultural, economic, and political life of the nation. Just to give you an example, Jews in Italy are the 0.05% of the population. They used to be 100 years ago around 0.1% of the population, but they won 25% of Nobel Prizes, which were given to Italians. For instance, at the time in which, in 1938, Jewish university professors, they were expelled, this was around 10% of the total, 10% of the total amount of university professors in Italy, against